Hi everyone, I'm Mako and I'm the Gallic witch. Welcome to my forest. Today I would like to talk about a complicated subject, both in terms of the actual complexity of the matter and because of how people respond to it and what people expect from it, which is deities, deity work, and I guess faith in general in witchcraft. So, as my title may imply, I consider myself from the Gallic faith of the Gauls. So, for those who don't know, the Gauls were the people who inhabited France around the same time as the Roman Empire had a monopoly over most of southern Europe, and a lot of traditions now come from what used to be the traditions of the Gauls. And although we haven't kept the deities of the Gauls in our modern France, because obviously as soon as Christianity came, it just blew everything away and destroyed everything we had before, I still think that there is a lot to be learned about what my ancestors believed in and to learn about myself in the process. And I'm not the only one to believe that, because I'm certainly not the last person to believe in the old Gaulish deities and to honor them and celebrate them the way, I hope, in a way that would have made my ancestors proud. So the basis of the Gaulish religion, just so you understand where I'm coming from, it's a polytheist religion, so there are multiple deities, each representing a side of life, much like Egyptian, Greek religions, Shinto in a way, and each of those deities has a way of being worshipped or honored that is specific to them. You can't just, like in the monotheist religion, just prayers or, going to the church. There's no church for the old Gaulish religion, right? So it's all up to you, and if you find one, a druidic circle to build a relationship with the gods and maintain it and honor them in a way that you see fit. There are major gods and minor gods. Major ones in the sense that the areas of life that they represent are major ones, not that they are more important than the other ones, but also because we have more information about them than we have, for example, the gods and goddesses of forest, rivers, the tribe, thunder, death, right? There's so many areas of life that are represented by a specific deities, and some more than others. We have a lot more information on Belenos, the god of the sun, than we have on Bolvos, the god of the streams and the rivers. But nonetheless, with the information that I have in my possession, I try my best to be faithful to what I know about those deities of old, and what little information we have kept from them I try to adhere to. It's always harder when you're alone, when you don't have an entire community behind you to practice the same things that you practice, to worship the same gods that you practice. But that's the crux of the matter. I believe in those deities, I honor them with gifts, offerings, prayers, keeping them in my thoughts, and that's about what you need to know about my relationship with deities through my witchcraft. This isn't a video about how to find your deities, how to build a relationship. I'm going to make one, but the reason why it's not is because I think it highly disrespectful of me to say that I have a working relationship with my deities. I don't. We're not colleagues, we're not work partners. They're gods and goddesses. I do not stand on the same level as them, right? That's not to say that it's something about submission or, honor. It's not that. It's just that I think it's dishonorable. I suppose is the right word, to put myself on the same level as them, knowing that the extent of my power on the world around me is minor, where their impact on the world is everywhere. And so I'm not criticizing witches that have working relationship with deities, okay? That's not what I'm going for here. Because those witches, at least a good portion of them, aren't religious in the way that they don't have a religion, they don't believe in something, they don't worship deities. They have a working relationship with energy entities and a partnership where they exchange energy, and you know what I mean. It's in that sense it is a working relationship. That's not what I have with my deities. Of course, I call to them, I ask them for things, I give them offerings, but there's no exchange of energy in the sense of I give you this, you give me that. That's not what I have with them, because I don't believe it to be respectful. So that's not what I have with them. In a sense, I suppose this is more the relationship I have with the Fae. I've seen many ways of pronouncing the word and even writing it in English-speaking spaces. No idea which one is proper. And I would even think that it would be improper for me to call them by an English name when I don't speak English as my native language and when I don't communicate with the Fae in English. So I just call them by the French name, Fae. It's essentially the same thing, right? Of course, the mythology and traditions behind are different. I don't have the same relationship with the Fae that the Irish have with them, for example. It's close in a way that we are close cultures, right? The Celts and the Gauls, very close. From some sources, even considered the same. So it's close. I don't have the time to explain to you the differences, but just for the purpose of understanding, you can assume that my Fae are about the same thing as Celts and Irish and Scottish people say when they call the Fae. I suppose that with the Fae, I have a working relationship, a back and forth, a relationship of gifting and receiving. That's not what I have with my deities. And I want to talk about that because when I'm online, since it's my main relationship with other witches, when I'm online and I see at the same time people who are deeply religious and practice witchcraft, people who are not religious but have a relationship with deities and work with them, and people who are neither of those things and are highly disrespectful of deities and other people's practices, it makes me think. I suppose because of the way I was raised. Very atheist. France is a highly secular country. Like, I can't stress to you how secular France is. I've had many debates online with US Americans who are very, very self-centered in the sense that they believe the entire world works the same way as the US, basically. Who could not believe that we as French people are not religious in the slightest. To me, it's outrageous that you have a president that has to swear on a religious text when a majority of your population isn't even of the same set of beliefs as this religious text that your leader, your political leader, has to swear on. It's mind-boggling to me. In the same way, your thoughts and prayers, right? I say if you're not religious, don't take it personally. I say as in US people. Thoughts and prayers. I've had entire debates online about that. Think all you want, but don't pray. Okay? Not for French people. We're not going to take it well. Unless you're praying for like French Christians, in which case, go right ahead. I'm not the one to speak for them. But they're far from being a majority in France. We don't want your prayers. It's disrespectful. We had an entire revolution based on slicing at the head the control the church had on our country. okay? Literally, people's heads rolled because of religion and because of how much we didn't want religion in our country and in our government anymore. We have a very special relationship with our Christian past, by which I mean we destroyed every ounce of it during the revolution and then tried to forget about it. So that's how I was brought up, okay? God doesn't exist. People who believe in God have daddy issues and need to go see a psychiatrist. Like, I'm only slightly exaggerating. That was basically the stance that I was raised in, okay? And still to this day, in a very weird way, I would consider myself an atheist because I don't believe in God. God, capital G, Big Daddy with a beard in the sky. I don't believe in it. And I know that's a bit weird in the sense that I also say about myself that I believe in the old Gaulish religion, okay? But I would still not call myself religious on the basis that the names the Gauls gave to the deities for natural things around them are, for me, convenient ways to name and call upon natural earth-based things that I want to communicate with. So, for example, I consider Belisama to be my main goddess, goddess I communicate with the most, with which I have the best relationship, I suppose, or the closest relationship, more like. Belisama is the goddess of the domesticated fire, the hearth, the family, the tribe. She is the goddess of the crafts, specifically like woodwork, metalwork, all sorts of craftsmanship like pottery, glasswork. You get the point. It's not the fine arts. It's not art. It's craft. So that's what she's the goddess of, because it was linked, all of that was linked to when they domesticated fire, pottery, metalwork. And when I have a relationship with Belisama, when I talk to her, when I pray to her, when I honor her, when I give her offerings, no, it's not true. I do picture a woman because it's easier, because I know humans. I've lived with humans my entire life. So it's easier for me to picture a woman. But at the same time, I also have the conscious thought that I'm not talking to a being. I'm talking to the group of ideas that represent domesticated fire, the hearth, and the crafts, and the tribe, right? I am communicating with the idea of community, of the idea of society. I'm communicating with the idea of being self-sufficient and independent enough to create your own pots and cutlery and carve your own utensils. So I'm picturing a woman because it's easier for my tiny human brain to understand. But I also have the conscious thought that I'm not talking to a woman. I'm using my energy and my magic in the broad sense to communicate with concepts, and believing in this set of gods, goddesses, deities, religious beings in general is my way of using my energy and my magic to communicate with broader, more complex things in the world around me. I hope I'm clear, but in that sense, I don't consider myself religious, and I still call myself an atheist, and I still don't think God exists. Because Belisama isn't God, Borvos isn't God, Belenos isn't God, capital G. They're names and images given to concepts that I'm very passionate about and that I fervently believe in. And to me, seeing the various relationships that witches online have with deities is fascinating, and also disrespectful, and also highly respectful. It's really strange, and that's why I love hearing about it. I'm really happy when I stumble upon a YouTube video, an Instagram post, a TikTok about a witch's relationship with their deities, because I'm fascinated with how other people work with them, both in the colleagues, partners, working partners relationship, and in the I believe in you, I have faith in you, you are a being that are a divine being that I believe in. Online, I haven't found a lot of people who are Celts, or even less people who are Gallic in their practices. So it's been a bit lonely, I suppose, and also a journey of self-confidence, because I'm the only one in my immediate circle who believes in those concepts and deities and who works with them. So I have to believe that what I'm doing is good enough or right. I have to believe that the information I'm getting and cross-verifying is good enough for me to not be disrespectful to concepts that I admire deeply. And yeah, it has been both helpful for my self-confidence and very crushing in doubt, in the sense that I'm not sure I'm doing it right, and I have no way of knowing until I find someone else. I have no way of knowing if what I'm doing is right. The little I've been, that's not entirely true, I've been, I guess, mentored in a way by people older than me when I was much younger. I've learned actual druidic practices, right? But in the sense that I work with them in my adulthood, I've been on my own. And so it's always interesting online to see a community of people who believe in the same concepts but disagreeing with each other, right? Like I'm very far from being a Wiccan, for example, but I've seen Wiccans online and they have vastly different beliefs for the same concepts. I think it's the god and the goddess, right, that they believe in, and they have very different interpretations of what that means, how to incorporate it in their craft, how to put them on an altar, right? Same for people who work with Greek deities. When I was younger, so my grandmother she's the one who taught me about everything I know about everything. And when I was younger, she was learning ancient Greek and she was very good at it, like she was at the end of her learning process. And so she gifted me books after books on the deities, and she talked to me, like she made me read ancient Greek text that she had translated so that I would get the closest possible to the original myth about Greek deities and gods and goddesses, right? And it was fascinating. And now when I see online people who actually work with those deities that I used to see when I was little, it's really interesting. And at the same time, it would be fooling myself to say that I think they work with those actual deities. And I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way. I think they have every right to think that they are working with Zeus, Aphrodite. You get the idea. But to me, it's very strange because I don't believe those deities exist in the same way that I don't believe God exists. So for me, watching them praying to Aphrodite, not sure I'm pronouncing that right, but watching them work with Greek deities is very strange. And at the same time, how can I blame them? When I see someone, let's say, working with the caducee, right? Healing and medicine, it's the same way I work with Damona, the goddess of healing. So yeah, of course I understand what they're doing and how they're working, and at the same time I don't really believe that those deities exist. But how can they not exist? They're copies, or at least based on the same principles as the deities I believe in. And it's really interesting to see it all around me and myself growing around the concept of what do I believe in? What exactly do I believe in? Is it gods and goddesses? Is it religion? Is it energy? Is it magical beings? And how do I interact with people who at the core worship the same things that I do, but just put different names on them? And I've also worked a lot on, I suppose, resentment towards people who work with Roman deities, like the ones that are inspired by the Greek deities, and Christian witches, because my culture has been crushed to dust by Christianity, and even before that by the Roman Empire when they invaded what used to be Gaul. And everything that we have now left of that old religion, that old way of life, those traditions, is what the Romans were kind enough to leave us. Literally, some of the information I have on my own pantheon comes from the writings of Caesar, the same man who invaded what would become my country and decimated its population. The book in which I get some of my information is called War on the Gauls. Like, do you understand how twisted and fucked up and hurtful that is? That I have to get my information from the same people who crushed my culture to dust. I've traveled a lot in France. I guess I come from two different places in France that have very different traditions, but in both places there are remnants of what used to be the Gaulish culture. We still do the dance around the Belton mast. We still do what is Imbolc, right? It has a different name, but it's called Chandeleur, but we still do it. I don't know, it's weird. We have those tidbits of tradition and memories of what used to be an amazing culture. At the same time, I have to deal with the fact that some of my knowledge comes from the same people who destroyed it. And I've had to accept and recognize in myself that I feel resentful when I see mostly Christian witches, because there aren't many witches who believe in the Roman gods. They mostly believe in the Greek ones, and Greek people were crushed by the Romans just as much as we were. I've been resentful, and I suppose I've had to remove myself from those spaces, because I'm not at a point yet where I can interact with Christian witchcraft in a way that is healthy. So I just move along. I'm not going to ruin that day by being a dick, right? So I'm moving along. But I'm still fascinated by all the different ways in which religion and deities interact with witchcraft. And so yeah, that was rambly, but I just wanted to tell you a bit more about my position on all of that, just so that when I make videos in the future about deity work and how to find a deity to work with, you understand a bit more about my position, where I come from, because I think I have a unique take on that whole deity work, which I think could be interesting for beginners and even advanced witches. But I also think that you shouldn't get all your information from a single place. And so when you watch my videos on deity work and finding a path with your deities, you remember that you should also learn somewhere else at the same time. Alright, thank you very much for listening, and I hope the sound wasn't too crap here, even though it's beautiful. If you haven't yet, follow me on Instagram. I do free tarot readings sometimes. I also post recipes, spellcraft, all of that good stuff. I also have a TikTok where I post more hands-on videos, I suppose. I'm going to do also a grimoire tour soon. So if you have questions about grimoires, at the same time as the tour, I'm also going to make videos on like how to start a grimoire and what to put inside it, especially as a green witch and as a Gallic witch. So yeah, if you have questions, leave them below. Follow me on Instagram. And if you found this interesting, leave a thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.